Welcome back, everyone. It is time to take a look at my listening journey over the first half of the summer. I'm going to split this video up into two parts since people tell me I'm better in small doses. At this point, you should know how this works. Let's dive in. Argent's third release was their biggest success, with the album opener Hold Your Head Up reaching number 5 on the charts in the UK, Canada, and the US. Unfortunately, the single edit would tragically cut the middle organ section, but the song stands on its own as a sort of anthem. The album cover is reminiscent of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album, except less people and all of them unknown outside of the band. See page 2? I wonder what that is about. Crap. The rest of the album is probably Argent's most consistent to date, but it begs the question, is it really prog? The simple answer is yes, but it does lean heavily into arena-oriented rock. And if you are one of the 5 people who have watched my previous listening experiences, I have talked about how the influence of Rod Argent's previous band, the Zombies, could be heard on the first 2 albums. All Together Now is all Argent throughout. Keep On Rolling has some Emerson-like piano, and this is one of the few times I will compare Argent's keyboard playing to Keith Emerson. First of all, he has his own distinct style, and keep in mind his material with the Zombies predates anything Emerson did with the Nice. Most songs are written by Argent and his Zombies bandmate Chris White, with a couple of heavy-hitting contributions from guitarist and vocalist Russ Ballard, such as Tragedy and He's a Dynamo. I felt like I spent most of the album waiting for breakout keyboard moments from Rod Argent, and they do occur here and there until you get to the last track, Pure Love. Pure Love is Argent's first real mini-epic with a 5-minute organ solo called Fantasia, being a cross between classical, carousel, and silent film influences. It then goes into more prog rock territory that should ultimately satisfy the listener. Overall, All Together Now is a good album, and I'm always excited to see where Argent is going next. I previously talked about Germany's Schicke and Furs and Frohling's first 2 albums in my Summer Listening Experience 2023. Or is it Schicke, Furs, and Frohling? Or is it Schicke, Furs, Frohling? Am I even pronouncing it correctly? Although Symphonic Pictures and Sunburst are regarded as their best albums, I did enjoy Ticket to Everywhere a lot more than I expected. Schicke, a drummer, would meet keyboardist Furs and Frohling in 1974, making their live debut in 1975. Their first album, Symphonic Pictures, was almost produced by an enthusiastic Frank Zappa, but conflicting schedules brought in Dieter Dierks, who also produced Nectar, Birth Control, Wallenstein, and Grobschnitt, to name a few. Ticket to Everywhere is a more accessible and fun album, but this comes at a price of giving up some of the dense textures found on the previous albums. The compositions still show plenty of sophistication throughout. Mostly an instrumental album, there are a couple of moments of lyrics. The album opener, Open Doors, sets the tone, followed by the Eastern Influences meets disco tune Song from India. Each song makes clever use of synthesizers with some guitar. The song Slow Motion is very atmospheric with heavy use of synths, and the album ends on a high note with the cheerful folk and roll. The Complete Recordings box set contains 2 live bonus tracks recorded in 1978. The recordings are pristine to the point of sounding like they were played in a studio. It captures the talent of the band and is a very worthy addition to the collection. Unfortunately, Schicke would depart due to a difference in musical direction, and the band would make a radical name change to Furs and Frohling. If you could buy a ticket to everywhere, where would you go? Me? The UK to visit my friend Graham Allen from the Graham Allen Vinyl channel on YouTube, who also likes Schicke and Furs and Frohling. He would probably open the door and be like, "What the heck are you doing here?" Just for the record, in the last segment I said heck, not fuck. Right from their first self-titled album released in 1978, Canadian band Saga had a clear direction that they stuck with for their first 4 albums. What was that direction? Prog with a lot of 80s pop rock mixed in. Some may even call it neo-prog. They certainly bridged together the 70s and 80s perfectly. Saga did have a lot of success primarily in Canada. Commercial radio stations in Canada are required to devote at least 35% of their music programming to Canadian content, especially during the popular music hours between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. I'm sure this helped homegrown Canadian bands like Rush, FM, Max Webster, and my mother-in-law's favorite, Gino Vanelli. There. I mentioned his name, okay? What makes Saga great is, like most prog bands of the era, the pieces all fit. Frontman Michael Sadler has a very strong, almost theatrical voice. His talents extend into keyboards and bass when needed. Drummer Steve Negus is a sure-handed percussionist who is complemented in the rhythm section by bassist and producer of this album, Jim Crichton. Jim's brother Ann is a truly underrated guitarist that doesn't rely too heavily on chords, but more or less playing a constant lead. Lastly, keyboardist Jim Gilmore lays down a wall of synths, giving Saga a larger-than-life sound. In Transit is Saga's fifth album and first live album, marking the end of their mostly prog period. It serves almost like a best-of compilation. The songs sound very similar to their studio counterparts, but with certainly more energy injected into already energetic songs. The concerts were recorded in Munich, Germany, a country in which they were very popular, and Copenhagen, Denmark in early 1982 over 4 dates. I'd like to take a moment to break down what songs came from which album because I'm always curious about these things. As you can see, they are pretty evenly distributed, but there is one outlier which is a briefcase because that is essentially an electronic drum solo played out of a briefcase by Michael Sadler while being backed by drummer Steve Negus, something a little more unique than a normal live drum solo. There is a Saga concert on YouTube recorded in Dortmund, Germany in 1981, which is very similar to this live album. It gives a good look at their early career, and I highly recommend watching. Overall, the sound of In Transit is very clean due to being recorded with digital equipment from the studio of Dieter Dierks. Where have I heard that name before? It is hard to pick standouts on this album because every song is very strong and a real testament to their arrangements and instrumentations. Saga's biggest hit, On the Loose, fittingly closes the album, not to be confused with the inferior Turn Me Loose by fellow Canadian band Loverboy. Great. Now I'm going to be trolled by Loverboy fans. According to the liner notes, In Transit was supposedly the 5th album to be released on CD ever. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.